Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Have you ever loved someone so deeply you'd wait forever, even in silence? Today's story isn't just about waiting, it's about loyalty, heartbreak, and the kind of love that survives everything. So grab a blanket, take a deep breath, and let's begin. On a mist-covered hill at the edge of Seattle, an old mansion stood still, as if time had quietly forgotten it. Inside, Clara West moved soundlessly through the familiar halls where memory and reality blurred with every step she took. It had been 5 years since her husband, Nathan Cole, founder of Tech Innovations, slipped into a coma after a car accident no one could explain. An accident that stole not just his voice and gaze, but the very rhythm of Clara's life. Each day, she sat beside his bed, listening to the soft hum of machines where words used to live. She smoothed the blanket, adjusted the tubes, performing a quiet ritual of care. Perhaps the only way left to hold on to something between them. She didn't know if Nathan could still feel her presence. She only knew that, even without certainty, she hadn't let go. The morning air was crisp, the sky a muted gray, casting a pale light across the glass windows. Clara sat at Nathan's bedside, her fingers gently adjusting the blanket across his chest, when a quiet knock echoed through the hallway. She turned as the door creaked open to reveal Edwin Cole, Nathan's grandfather. His silver hair framed a face carved by time, but his gaze remained firm, steady. In his hand he carried a dark leather journal, its corners worn down by age and memory. "This was Nathan's," he said, voice low but sure. "He wrote it before the accident. You should read it." Clara hesitated before taking it, holding it as though it might break something fragile buried deep inside her. That night, alone beside the soft glow of the bedside lamp, she opened the journal. The pages crackled beneath her fingers like distant whispers carried through time. Nathan's handwriting appeared strong, alive, familiar. "Clara is my light. Every day with her feels like a gift. I don't know if I deserve it, but I dream of spending a lifetime by her side." Each word reached into her chest, filling spaces she hadn't realized had gone hollow. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks as her fingers traced the ink, the connection immediate, closer than she'd felt to him in years. The journal wasn't just a memory, it was a lifeline, pulling her back from the edge of quiet resignation. And with every page, something inside her stirred. It wasn't duty that kept her by his side, not anymore. It was love, and it was time to fight for it. Since the night she opened his journal, Clara was no longer the woman who merely waited. Something inside her had shifted, like a spark flickering back to life in a heart that had grown cold. She began a ritual, not one based on science or reason, but one born purely from instinct, from love. Each morning and again at night, she took a small sip of water, held it gently in her mouth, then leaned down to Nathan's lips, letting the droplets pass to him through the softest kiss. No one told her to do it, no doctor recommended it, but Clara believed that somewhere in that fragile space between their breaths, something still lived. She couldn't hear his voice, couldn't know if he felt her, but every time their lips met, she felt him drift just a little closer, if only for a moment. For 5 years, she had cared for Nathan out of love, but also out of habit, an act that gave her purpose. But now, with his words still echoing through her from the journal, each drop of water carried something more. "I'm still here," it whispered. "I never left." What Clara didn't know was that beneath the silence and stillness, Nathan Cole had awakened a year ago, and every time she offered him water in that quiet, tender way, he felt it, all of it. Strangely, what began as a ritual of longing had become something more. It was the thread holding him to this world, the kiss that kept him alive. Nathan Cole woke up on a morning that looked no different from any other, the soft sunlight slipping through the curtains, the wind brushing gently against the windows. But for him, it was the first morning back in the world. He didn't open his eyes right away, he listened first. The familiar hum of machines, the sound of Clara's footsteps, her gentle voice whispering near his ear, just like all the days before. Nathan had awakened right here, in the mansion, in the very room where Clara had stayed by his side for 5 long years. Only one other person knew, Dr. Ellis, the family's physician, who had been quietly monitoring Nathan's fragile life since the accident. "Don't rush it," Ellis had told him softly. "You need time. And maybe you need the truth." As Nathan's strength returned, he chose to keep his eyes closed, to lie still, to pretend. He listened to everything. He felt Clara's presence, her voice, her touch, the tender ritual, the water she passed to him through soft, quiet kisses. But he also heard his grandfather's conversations, warnings about Leila Monroe, his former fiancée, and whispers that Clara may have stayed, not out of love, but for the fortune Koltek left behind. He didn't want to believe it, but the seed of doubt had taken root. And rather than confront it, he watched in silence. For an entire year, Nathan lay still, testing the only question that mattered to him now. Was Clara here for him, or for everything he used to be? The morning sunlight hadn't yet burned away the mist from the stone steps when the doorbell rang, its chime echoing through the quiet stillness of the estate. Clara opened the door with a half-finished cup of tea in hand, and for a moment, she froze. Derek Shaw, a face from another life, wearing the same familiar smile, once gentle, now slick and sharpened. He hadn't changed much, except for the eyes. They were colder, sharper, like a blade honed by profit. "Clara West," he said, his voice honeyed, laced with steel, still turning heads. She said nothing, only stepped aside. Derek entered like he owned the space, scanning the room with the detached eye of someone pricing what he might dismantle. "Word is, Koltek's bleeding," he said. "No Nathan for 5 years, no leadership. But I've got a solution. Investors ready to buy. You'd get a generous cut, enough to start over, no more pretending to be the grieving wife." Clara looked at him, unmoved. "This isn't pretending," she said softly. "And I'm not starting over. This is the life I chose." Derek tilted his head. The smile faded. "You're alone, Clara, and the company's falling apart." She walked past him, opened the front door. "Not alone," she said, "and not selling." That afternoon, as Clara sorted through a stack of financial reports, the bell rang again. She didn't need to guess this time. Leila Monroe stood at the door, wrapped in elegance and perfume, her smile a polished weapon. "We should talk," Leila said smoothly, "about Nathan, about the company, and about you, the ever-faithful wife people whisper is just waiting for her inheritance." Clara didn't flinch. She met Lila's gaze without blinking. "I think I don't owe you anything." Leila shrugged, stepping back. "Perhaps, but the truth has a way of surfacing." Upstairs, in the soft light that filtered through the curtains, Nathan Cole heard everything. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, but each word was seared into his mind. She was being tested, brutally so, and he, who set the test in motion, no longer knew how much more he could take. That night, rain hammered against the roof of the estate, echoing like the crack of something long held together, finally breaking. Clara had just returned from a brutal meeting with investors. Cold stares, dismissive words, and one that lingered. Koltek isn't worth saving anymore. She stepped into Nathan's room, her shoulders heavy, her spirit frayed. Sitting by his side, she let the warm light fall across his still face. He looked like marble, beautiful, untouchable. "I'm tired," she whispered, leaning forward, "but I won't give up. No matter what they say, I still believe in you." She took a small sip of water, held it, and leaned down. The ritual, every night, without fail. But this time, he kissed her back. It wasn't a twitch. It wasn't a spasm. It was a kiss, soft, barely there, but real enough to undo her. Clara pulled back sharply, breath frozen. Her eyes searched his face and found his eyes open, gazing straight at her. "Nathan," she choked out. He nodded. "I woke up a year ago." She staggered back. "A year? You? You've been awake all this time?" His voice was raw, unfamiliar. "I needed to be sure. Leila told me you stayed for the money. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to know." Clara stood, tears welling. So 5 years of watching you, caring for you, whispering to you, that was all just part of your test? Nathan tried to reach for her, but she stepped away. I loved you, Nathan. I never left. But you doubted me. Silence fell between them. Rain still fell outside. And after 5 years of silence, their first words came with both life and fracture. Clara couldn't sleep after hearing the truth. Nathan had been awake for a year, watching her in silence. She had stayed, loved, and fought, while he had tested her faith. Her heart had barely recovered when a call came the next morning. It was Edwin Urgent, breathless. Lila Monroe will be at the fundraising gala tonight. She's dropping hints about the accident. Clara, be careful. That evening, Clara wore a long black gown, her hair swept high, her eyes hard as steel. But what shocked the room wasn't her entrance. It was Nathan Cole, walking beside her. No one knew he had woken up. Whispers swept through the room, eyes followed them, but Clara kept moving until she reached the bar where Lila Monroe stood laughing with a group of shareholders. Lila turned, as if expecting them. Well, look at you two. Picture perfect, she said, raising her glass. Funny how you woke up just in time, Nathan. He stepped forward, voice low, unshakable. I know you were near the garage that night, Lila. I have the report, a witness, and a reason. You couldn't stand that I chose Clara. Silence fell like a curtain. Clara's voice was steady. What did you tell Nathan, or Edwin, that I was just waiting to inherit? Was it jealousy or something darker? Lila didn't deny it. She only smiled. Then, from across the room, Derek Shaw appeared, face contorted with fury. You're all liars, he growled and pulled a gun from his coat. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed. He aimed at Nathan. You should have stayed gone, Derek roared. Coltec was mine. Lila promised me. Clara didn't hesitate. She lunged, pushing Nathan aside. The gun fired. A searing pain tore through her shoulder. They crashed to the ground. Nathan pulled her close as security surged forward, pinning Derek down as he shouted, She said it would all be mine if he never woke up. Clara looked up. Lila was gone. Nathan stared at the empty space where she had stood. She's not getting away, he said darkly. Not this time. Clara refused to rest, even with the bandage tight across her shoulder. The pain didn't stop her, not when something deeper still ached inside. The truth had surfaced, but the story wasn't finished. After the shooting, Nathan quietly traced irregular transactions Lila had made through old Coltec channels. He found it, an abandoned warehouse in the South District, once company property. He didn't call the police yet, not until Clara stood beside him, strong despite her wound. She didn't want anyone else to close this chapter. It had to be her. The rain was soft as they arrived. Clara stepped out slowly, clutching her injured arm. Her steps were careful, but her presence was unwavering. Inside, Lila was pacing, phone pressed to her ear. He confessed? I can't be here when they come. Someone has to get me out. She turned and froze. You can't run forever, Lila, Nathan said, voice sharp. You were at the garage, you tampered with the brakes, you nearly killed me because I didn't choose you. Lila laughed, bitter. You chose wrong, and now you'll both pay. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady, but her hands trembling slightly. No, she said, eyes locked with Lila's. You lost the moment you let bitterness define you. Police arrived moments later. Lila didn't fight. She was done. Lila was taken away in silence. No final threats, no smug remarks. Only the metallic click of handcuffs echoing through the warehouse, where every lie, every grudge had finally unraveled. Clara stood still, her fingers brushing the bandage over her shoulder. The pain was more than just physical. She had carried a war inside her for 5 long years, and now, somehow, she had won. Nathan held her hand as they left the warehouse. Neither of them spoke during the drive back. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained heavy, gray. Yet beneath that stillness, something was beginning, quiet, but certain. In the days that followed, the mansion settled into a different kind of silence. Not the cold, uncertain silence of waiting, but one of healing. Nathan and Clara spent quiet mornings together. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to. She rested. He stayed beside her. Sometimes just holding hands by the window was enough. And in that stillness, something fragile began to mend. Trust, love, the rhythm they had lost. A month later, the mansion was gently transformed. Candles flickered around the back garden, the same place Clara used to wander alone every afternoon. But now it became the setting for something she once never dared to hope for again, a renewal of vows. There were no strangers, no press, just Edwin, Dr. Ellis, a few people who had stayed through the storm. Clara wore a simple white dress. Her shoulder was still healing, but her smile, it was whole again. Nathan walked toward her, not as a man recently rescued, but as one who had truly woken up. He took her hands, lowered his head, and spoke with a voice softer than breath. "I was wrong, but you stayed. Even when I doubted you, you loved me." Clara met his gaze, her eyes shimmering but dry. "I never left. Even when you weren't yourself, I believed you'd come back. And I was here, waiting for the real you." They didn't need elaborate vows, just that, spoken, seen, felt. This time, their promises weren't made from hope. They were made from experience, from scars, and from forgiveness. 2 years later, a soft spring breeze slipped through the windows of the house on the city's edge. No longer filled with machines or silence, but with the laughter of a 2-year-old girl with soft curls and eyes that mirrored her father's. Clara sat on a wicker chair by the window, her daughter nestled against her chest, fingers gently brushing the baby-fine strands of hair. The scar on her shoulder was faint now, nearly invisible, but Clara still felt it, a quiet reminder that she had walked through darkness to arrive here. Nathan stepped into the room carrying 2 mugs of coffee, his shirt half-buttoned, hair slightly tousled. He was no longer the guarded CEO from glossy magazine covers, no more suspicion in his eyes. Now he was the man of slow mornings, the one who rocked his daughter to sleep, kissed his wife's forehead, and cooked breakfast like it was the most sacred ritual. "She dreamed of butterflies again," Clara whispered with a smile, watching her daughter drift into sleep. Nathan sat beside her, threading his fingers through hers. "Just like you," he said, "always chasing light, even in the dark." Clara rested her head on his shoulder. No more words were needed. They had been through everything, loss, doubt, pain, to finally understand this. Happiness doesn't come from perfection, but from what we choose never to give up on. Outside, sunlight streamed through the trees, and in that quiet room, 3 hearts beat in unison. Peaceful. Finally.